And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And I'd like to say that our show today is sponsored by Sambucol Vitamins. We will be talking about that a little bit later. But joining me today on my show is Karen White, New York Times best-selling author. She's written 30 books. We have a copy of her book to be, I believe, it's coming out in March, but I got a sneak peek. The Shop on Royal Street. Karen has written 30 books, over 2 million copies sold of her books in 15 languages, and she's here to join us today to talk about the journey of an author, because Karen really didn't set out to be an author, right? Thanks for joining us, Karen.
Thanks for having me. And no, I still have no intention of being an author. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why I continue to do it, because it's really hard. But I've always loved books. I think it was probably inevitable that I found myself here, but I've always loved books. I was a business major. I 100% thought that I would just live in the world of, business, raise my kids and that's that. And and just circumstances, doing, things following in the right place, I just ended up a multi-published author.
Let's
with no plan. Don't tell my children that.
Isn't that sometimes the best way, though, really? But let's dial it back a little, right? You were raised in London, right?
And yeah, 7 years. Mm-hmm.
7 years in London. Talk to me a little bit about your life, about having brothers, and what was an escape for you when you were a kid?
Yeah, reading. I mean, my father was with Exxon, so we lived in a lot of interesting places. One of them being Venezuela, which, has lots of horrible insects and reptiles. And my lovely brothers, my older brothers, really enjoyed torturing me with said poisonous insects and reptiles. So I needed something to do while I was hiding from them. And that's when I discovered books. And I discovered my first book that I remember reading as a young girl in third grade in Venezuela was The Secret of the Old Clock. And that was Nancy Drew. And of course, that sort of got me started. But, ever since then, my nose has always been in a book. I've always loved, creating stories in my head and reading about them. It was the actual writing them down that I stopped with my love of words, because I hated to write. Not what I ever thought I'd be doing.
Really? What do you mean you hated to write? Was it something you didn't do in school?
Well, I had to do it in school, but women of a certain age, when we were in school, there were no computers. You hand wrote everything. I mean, I remember, I was in AP history and I had to handwrite a 50-page term paper. It was insane. But I remember going to, writing classes or just English classes. Okay, kids, write a 5-page mystery. And I'd be like, no, because my stories would be on the third chapter, whereas my handwriting would be still on the third sentence. And I would forget all these cool things and I just get frustrated. So I became the student who just wrote really, really, really big, so that I ran out of paper and couldn't,
That's fantastic. Oh my God. You would have gotten in, wait. You would have gotten in trouble at my school, because I went to Catholic school, and if your penmanship was not like completely perfect, it was like this much out of the line, forget about it. It's
well,
like you would have been in a lot of trouble.
I was discouraged because I loved creating the stories. But I would always get A+ in content and then an F in penmanship. So I constantly, had C's in English. And again, I need to find my old report cards. But my parents, when they were selling their house and moving, my dad found like all of my report cards, and there was like, I think it was my 6th grade English teacher, under writing or something, Karen needs to work on her penmanship skills. I mean, that's all they said about my writing skills, was my penmanship. So no, it was just something I was never interested in doing. And I didn't kind of figure that all out until I learned how to type in 10th grade.
Nice. I remember typing in 10th grade. It really did open up your entire life, right? Like doing all that. Everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's dial it now ahead a little bit. So you went to college, you studied business at Tulane. You were in the world of business. You had 2 children, and Talk to me about when you decided to start writing, because I know we have a family member in common. We'll talk about her later. And she told me a little bit about how you first started writing. And I want the listeners and the viewers to hear this, because there's a lot of people out there who have a story in their head, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and they don't know how to get it out. They're afraid to get it out.
Right.
And you didn't even take a writing course, which is pretty incredible. So talk to me about that journey of writing.
So, at some point, when my kids were little, I thought I wanted to write for children, and I took an online class, and I actually learned a lot about writing in that class. Nothing ever came out of it except for a few things that I'd somehow missed in my education. But I was still an avid reader, and another sister-in-law of mine, married to my husband's oldest brother, was an avid reader, and we would, recommend books back and forth. And she was all a gaga. I mean, and this was probably, my kids were really little, but she was all gaga over this book, this series called the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon.
Right.
Hugely popular.
Yeah.
They've been popular since they came out. And when I first heard about them, there were only 4 in the series. I think like the 12th one just came out or something, and I just bought it. But there was something about, there are very few books that give you a book hangover. I mean, Gone with the Wind for me was one of them, and Outlander was another. These 4 books, I was mesmerized. I had the worst.
Mine was Moby Dick. I just couldn't stop reading that one. Yeah,
Really?
loved it. I couldn't put it down. It was like 1,000 pages, and I read it in one night. I was very proud of myself. But
Oh
anyway,
my
go ahead.
gosh. I skipped school to read Gone with the Wind. So when I lived in London. It's the only time I was such a nerd.
But it hang on a minute. It did you good. It did you okay.
Right.
Skipping school to read. I guarantee
It's
you
so
learn more
nerdy.
yeah, but you learn way more skipping school reading Gone with the Wind than you probably would have done at school that day, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Probably. But anyway, so I mean, I remember, I read them, boom, boom, and they're thick books. And I remember taking my kids to the park and putting them in the swings. I'd hold the book in one hand and I'd push them in the swings in the other. And like
Wow.
6 hours later, the kids were like, "Mom, we're hungry. It's raining. It's dark. Can we go home now?" Not
Right?
that,
Wow.
I just completely would lose track of time. And that to me is always the sign of a really fabulous book. And I read all 4 of them, and I could not get the story and the characters out of my mind. It was a hangover. I picked up another book to read and I couldn't. My husband and I even, went, I guess that was 2007. And we went, actually took a trip to Scotland. The men in kilts thing is true. And when I got back, I still couldn't pick up a book to read. So I heard my teachers had always been telling me, "You're so creative, you should be a writer," and me like, gagging, like, no, who would ever want to do such a horrible thing? And I couldn't read. So I just sat down one day and started writing my first book. And
Wow.
wow.
What was it?
And that was In the Shadow of the Moon.
That was In the Shadow of the Moon.
Yes.
And were you not like writing some of it while you were waiting for your kids, picking them up at carpool?
Oh,
and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. My SUV became my office. When I got my first laptop, and it was a hand-me-down. My husband's office gives them new laptops every year, and then they didn't,
Wow.
they didn't want the other ones back, and now they do. It's a little, these were like in the very, very beginning, they still had floppy disks, and I got my first laptop. And I was like, "This is awesome. I can write wherever I go." And it was great because
no more of this, right? No more of this. You were able to write
because that would be I would never write a book if I had to handwrite it. There was just absolutely no way. Although, when I'm kind of, just thinking about stuff, I have to write on lined paper with a pencil, which is weird, but I just like scribble notes. But anyway, so that became my first book. I didn't really tell anyone. I might have shared it with close friends and family, but I was kind of just doing it as a lark. I had absolutely zero expectation of ever getting published. I mean, that's what like real writers do. They get published and then they go on and they have a writing career. And I was like, that's not me. Who am I fooling? But the process was awesome. So I found out about a contest where Diana Gabaldon was going to be, would give you a written critique if you made it to the final round. And then the contest was then the finalist judges were literary agents, well-known literary agents in New York. So I thought, it was like, I don't know, $30 to enter. I'm like, okay, all I'm going to lose here is $30, but to get a critique by Diana would just really be the icing on my cupcake. So I entered the contest, and not only did I end up getting the critique from Diana, but I ended up winning. And that is how I got an offer of representation from my first agent.
Okay, a couple of things there. If you have an idea in your head, and I like people to hear this, you keep going and you don't give up, right? I mean, you were someone who was a reader. Right. You enjoyed writing, even if penmanship wasn't quite your thing. Right? And the fact that she was your favorite author all those years, and how amazing how it came full circle. She read your material. She read your material. You didn't expect to win this thing. You entered anyway, and lo and behold, it puts you on the road to being an author. And to me, this is really inspirational for people who feel like they'll never get anywhere, because you never even took a writing course. And to me, that's extraordinary.
But you read. Reading books was the best teaching I could have ever had. So
yeah. And how do you get the idea for your books, your 30 books, tremendous amount of research in history, I know that, and character development? How do you get the idea for your characters? And just a little tease here. We have someone who's waiting sort of in the Zoom room, who's one of sort of your favorite characters that you sprinkle in. We're not going to say who yet, but we'll go to her in a second. How do you get the idea of these characters? How do you get the idea of the plot lines?
The characters come to me. I don't seek them out. They literally walk into my head right before I need to put them on the page. I will create my main character, because my main character is completely from my imagination, and then everybody else joins the cast depending on what this main character needs, which is kind of fun. My stories come from everywhere. I remember one of my most popular books, A Long Time Gone, came to me while watching footage of Hurricane Sandy, where an old tree in Connecticut had been blown over. It was like a 300-year-old tree. It had been blown over. And in the deep roots, they found an old skeleton. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is like the best story idea ever. And so I worked it in, I moved it to Mississippi, and I made it all about, the Mississippi Delta and 3 generations of women. And, the rest of it just comes to me. But that kernel of story I find everywhere. And if it excites me, if I get those little goosebumps, and I definitely got the goosebumps when I was watching that story, I was like, oh yeah, that's where that comes from. Yeah.
Wow. Let's go over some of those books. The Last Night in London. That's one of my favorites, right? About love and grief and forgiveness. The Attic on Queen Street, another favorite. Different, but yet what would you say is a similarity, if you will, that runs through each of your books?
Right. So my books are always, regardless of what the subplots or the backstories are always about relationships, family relationships and friendships, mostly, friendships between women, not necessarily even of the same generation. I love writing multi-generational stories of not just, daughter, granddaughter, mother, but also of girls or women who've known each other for generations, and just that tug and that tug and that pull, and what brings them together, what brings them apart, what takes them apart, what brings them back together again. And also friendships between, a 93-year-old woman and a 33-year-old divorcee. I love exploring the similarities, while also talking about the differences between, growing up in the 1940s, growing up now, and that's when my love of history comes in. And so yeah, and my books are always set in the South. It's what I know. My family's from the South. It's what I know and love. and it's always about a woman. I've had a few. I've had one male main character, but then he gets killed off pretty early on because I think having been raised by three brothers, it's just so much more fun and interesting to write about women. So
it's your revenge. It's your revenge to them, Karen. It's your revenge to them.
And people always say, "Do your brothers know that you don't write about men?" And I'm like, no, because I don't think they know how to read. So no danger there.
No danger there. Oh boy, I love that. Now, one of the characters who's been recurring in your story, I'd like to bring her up right now. She's been in the Zoom room backstage. Where'd she go? Tony? Ah, there you are.
Hello, ladies.
Oh my God. Now, let me introduce her. Friends. Yep. Let me introduce her. This is Claire Kobelt. Claire Kobelt is my sister-in-law. Claire Kobelt is your sister-in-law.
Right.
Claire is married to my husband's brother, and you are married to Claire's brother.
Correct.
Talk about like a full circle there. Wow.
Right. I know, right?
What I love is that you've got Claire Kobelt and my brother-in-law, Rich Kobelt, sort of sprinkled in so many of your books, right? Tell me about what gave you the idea to do that. And boy, I hope I'm going to be in one of your books too, because I will be an interesting character. I'll give you some material.
I've even used our mutual nephew, Brian, and I used Katie once in one of them, but it's mostly Rich. I've had Claire join him at a wedding in one book, and in something else you were in. I've written so many I can't always remember, but actually Claire and Rich were the last book that you showed, the Attic on Queen Street, was actually dedicated to both of them. So
wait. If Rich is there, like tell him to poke his head in or something. That'd be kind of fun. I'm sure he's like nearby. You could yell for him or something.
He's in the basement.
But if not,
tell him not to come in costume.
Yeah, really. But anyway, so like, tell me about why did you even decide to use the real names? I think that's really, really funny.
Well, I've been doing that for a while. Obviously, you have to be careful. You don't want to defame anybody. And I have found that my friends and neighbors were like, why aren't I in one of your books? I'm like, okay, well, I can disguise your name. And they're like, no, use the real thing. But can you make me, skinny and taller? I'm like, whatever. So I've been kind of, just like if my main character needed a neighbor to go borrow a cup of sugar from or something, just, whatever. I've been doing that because it gives a lot of joy to people and I love doing it. And Rich, as you know, is a huge joker. I don't think Claire would have married him if he didn't have a sense of humor. And luckily he has a very patient sense of humor and we have a lot of fun together. But I was trying to get back at them. We had this, the coleslaw escapades, which one day I will write a book about, but it was our turn and I was trying to get back at them. And I thought, well, one way they can never get back is, put me in a book because they don't write, but I can do that. So I needed a handyman for my Trad Street series. So in the very, very first book, we meet Rich Kobelt, who unfortunately, now this isn't him in real life. This is Rich Kobelt, the plumber / handyman from the book series. He is a plumber who is notorious for not wearing a belt and for always leaning over when you don't really want him to and exposing more than you really want to see.
Oh my goodness.
So he is well known in my fans. And
this is so funny. And does he keep does Rich Kobelt always come back as the plumber though, or is Rich Kobelt doing other things?
But then I've used Rich's name in pretty much all of my books. He has been a little annoying boy in, pulling a little girl's hair. He's been a murder victim. He's been a car mechanic. He's been a realtor, I think.
Like an auctioneer? Did he own like an antique store? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, go ahead.
But only in the Trad Street series does he have the plumber issue.
Claire, what do you think about this? I mean, I think this is hysterical.
No, I think Rich is very proud of his appearances in every book. And I've read every book myself. They're lined up in my cabinet with a light on them. So I am currently reading your last book right now. And he said, well, what am I doing in that one? So he's a really good sense of humor. And honestly, I think
Thankfully.
he's thrilled.
Yeah. And
Right.
I know
Well,
you've gotten,
didn't you tell me that you've been places and people were like, wait, what? Aren't you in that book? Right,
Yeah.
Claire?
Well, there was one book signing Karen did up here in Westchester, and Rich went and helped sign books. But I think it's interesting that her readers are so astute that they picked up that this name was in every book early on.
right.
They're like,
Right.
what's
Is
the
Kobelt
meaning
a
of
Southern
Kobelt?
name?
Yeah, it's
I get
an
that a
odd
lot.
name, so you're going to remember it. But it's
Yeah.
good fun.
I'm suddenly getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if you guys are getting that. Anybody?
I heard it,
No?
but it's not coming from me.
Oh, well,
No,
it went
I
away.
don't.
Such is the world of Zoom these days, everybody.
It is.
Claire, you grew up with Karen. In fact, you attended school in London and you met there. Tell me a little bit about, tell me a little bit about, right, her brother. I don't know her journey as a writer, because it's kind of fun to know somebody when they're younger and you get to see how they've evolved with all this, right? Tell me about it.
Or not.
Right, or not, right? Tell me about some fun stories that I'm sure her readers would love to know, because Karen, you're very popular. You've got quite a following. Something that they would just love to know that they might not. Please.
Well, I have to think about what I could actually speak about, because there's some things we can't divulge that will go with us to our graves. Yeah. But
Well,
no,
how about the lingerie thing? I mean, and then just stop, don't go further into the night. But, you know, that was like, so good, but that was what we did. It was the day we graduated from high school.
you're much
What
better at
happened?
Go ahead, Karen.
Go
You're
ahead.
much better at this.
No. This one's on you, Claire. Go ahead. What happened with the lingerie in high school? I got to know.
Well, it was her mother's lingerie.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I think when the fun part about living in another country, unfortunately, is you have a little bit of anonymity. So when I moved to London, you know, Karen had lived there almost six and a half years already. But it's really fun to live in a place where you go, you know, not many people know me here. So we had a lot of fun reenacting, you know, coming on a train in opposite ends and acting like we're seeing each other for the first time, and then possibly getting in a fight on the tube. You know, even with our backpacks.
Like we're actresses.
Yeah, we were just like acting out and having fun. And I will say, you know, I was pretty shy. Karen is much more the outgoing personality, and I attribute her to helping me feel comfortable in London and have fun. And she was much more worldly than myself, and it was just like a really fun time, especially in London. Just exploring London, you know, the fun that we had, the antics with our friends.
Right.
It was just really, so yeah, her creativity has always been there for sure.
Yeah.
And we were the best physics partners. That's how we, you know, chemistry
we
partners.
really bonded over physics.
Yeah, and chemistry.
I am really hearing feedback. Does anybody have this show on nearby? Because I really hear a lot of feedback. No, anybody?
I've even turned off all of my stuff. It sounds like it's coming from you, Deborah.
My studio, maybe. Oh, maybe Tony can help. That's my engineer. He can try and figure that out. But it happens sometimes.
No.
So getting back to you, Karen, for a moment. Have you ever actually done a contest or anything where you would say, you know, win this and I'll put you in my next book? Have you ever done anything like that? That'd be kind of fun.
No, I've done it often. I usually do it as a fundraiser for like wounded warriors and that kind of thing. So, and I did another one actually the last night in London. The winner is in this book. I did a fundraiser for the Spartanburg, South Carolina Humane Society, and people bid on it. And we raised a lot of money for the Humane Society. So I put her and her dog in the book. So she is, she's the caretaker, and her dog, Oliver, are you know, major secondary characters in the story. But I do it a lot. Not so much anymore because I was getting a backlog, and people are like, when am I ever going to be in your book? I'm like, oh, I'm going through it. I have a folder, you know, and I have everybody, you know, in order. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
What are some of your philanthropic efforts, Claire? You can chime in too with some of yours, Zara, as well, please. And also, what do you like to do when you're not writing?
What do you mean when I'm not writing?
That's
the
you're
problem.
one of those, huh?
I got two
Really.
books and a wedding to plan this year. It's all crazy, but to me, I think I named them my two favorite charities that I love to support are Wounded Warriors and really any humane society, not just Spartanburg. I also have a local one in Atlanta, and the ASPCA, but I have I had two dog children. We lost one last year. But I have one dog child, and I just, until I had dogs, I didn't realize how important they are to the human race and our mental health. I don't know how it would have gotten over the last few years. Claire is an honorary aunt to my fur babies, and she loves them. And I think her blood pressure goes down whenever she comes to visit. I'm sure it's me too, but
of course,
yeah. But yeah, and what about you, Claire?
Definitely Wounded Warrior is the one I give to. Church activities and working in a nursing home caring for the elderly is probably my biggest contribution of my time and my career at this point.
And that's something we have in common, taking care of old people right now.
Yeah, and I know, Claire, you've been doing it for years and years, taking care of older people. And one thing about my sister-in-law, she never complains. I'll call her and go, blah, 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 and I'll be complaining about anything. Very rarely says anything. And I get off the phone and I think, oh my God, she's like said nothing, except it's quite a testament to you, Claire. But that's
absolutely.
No, I mean, I feel very blessed. But...
Yeah. Well, Karen, any parting words that you would like to tell our audience about your books, about your journey? Because I really want to give some inspiration to someone out there who's too scared to take that leap. And there's a lot of people with a story to tell. In fact, most of us have one. They think they're not good enough writer, though, or blah, blah, blah. What would you suggest?
All of that. You need to really quiet your editors, your external and internal editors. Never write with imaginary people looking over your shoulder, not your parents, not your spouse, not your best friends. You write, that book is only between you and the book. You do not need to be beholden to anybody. And I think, write what's in your heart. If it's true to you, it will find a home. If you think you need to brush up on your writing skills, there are plenty of places to get some writing workshops, that kind of thing. Just shy away from writers' workshops that try to tell you how to do it, because everybody has a different method. And for those of you who are in the thick of it, and like every morning, I mean, this is my career, but it is a job and it is creative. But every morning, because I have to write every day, I'm a slow writer and I have lots of deadlines, so I have to write every day. There are many days I wake up and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I would rather stick knitting needles in my eyes than sit down at my computer and write. And that's why I have the screensaver. And to borrow from Nike, just do it. And then, there, and not to keep quoting popular figures, but there's also, Lenny Kravitz's song, once you jump in, you'll find yourself on the other side, which is true. Once you start, you started, you're on the way there. And then just keep doing it. Don't worry if it's good or bad, just do it.
And there's no one way to start, right? You shouldn't necessarily go in chronological order, right? Could you very briefly touch on that there's just all different ways, right? Would you tell us?
There are as many ways to write a book as there are authors. I remember listening to Diana Gabaldon about how she writes her books. She kind of writes, she envisions these beautiful scenes and writes them kind of out of order, and then like a puzzle, then finds a way to put them back in. And her books are literally thousands of pages long. I mean, she's brilliant, and I kudos to her. That is the way it works for her. I have tried that. Does not work for me. I can't even outline a book, because it ruins it for me if I know how it ends. So, to each his own, really. Certainly dabble. If you're a new writer, certainly dabble. Listen to other authors. Find out how they do it. Go to a writer's conference where you listen to other authors. And then try different methods and then find the one that works for you. It could be a hybrid, who knows, but everybody has their own method.
How can people find you? I know that you're going to be going on tour. This book, The Shop on the shop on Royal Street is going to be coming out, I think, March 29th.
Correct.
You've got a second book that you were in collaboration with. I believe that's coming out in May, right?
Yep, May 17th.
Tell me the title of that one, please.
That one is called The Lost Summers of Newport, with Beatrice Williams and Lauren Willig and myself, Team W as we call ourselves, but we're really excited about that. And yes, you can find out where I'm going to be, where Team W is going to be on tour. We are just now getting both tours finalized, and we're updating my website and all my social media as soon as we get all the info. So definitely follow me at karen-white.com. And on my website, there's all my social media links as well, but sign up for my mailing list so you don't miss anything. And I do more things on my mailing list than just talk about my books. I share cute pictures of my dog, recipes, recommend other books, movies, products, all those fun things. Because I see my readers as really an extension of my girlfriends. You know, we're all friends, and we're all talking about stuff. So
yeah. And what about one of my most important questions, actually, Rich Kobelt? Can you give us and Claire Kobelt sort of tell us a little bit when we can see them in this next book?
Okay, so in the shop on Royal Street, we've taken a turn because the Trad Street series, where Rich and his son Brian both operate hard rock construction, that is in Charleston.
Okay.
But apparently they have a cousin, Thibaut Kobelt, who lives and works in construction in New Orleans. And apparently he wears a belt, which is, you know, it's refreshing, but, you know, we do miss the old Rich. So we might have to have a family reunion at some point so we can have Rich and Claire join Thibaut in New Orleans, maybe for Mardi Gras. Who knows?
Oh, sounds good.
And their stunning sister-in-law. Let's not forget the
right. And Deborah Kobylt also, yeah,
from Los Angeles. You know,
from Los Angeles.
Sprinkle her in there. Make her anything you want. You know, whatever. I just think it would be delightful. Claire, anything you'd like to add before we let you both go? And thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Oh, no. Writing is difficult. The fact that Karen puts out these books at the pace that she does, I've been testimony to how hard she works. I'll come down for a week at the beach, and it's like, no. I'll do my emails, my edits, and I'm like, I'm fine. I can walk. I'm happy to do nothing, but it's a lot of work. Anybody who thinks it's not is mistaken. It's phenomenal. Really, I'm in awe. I'm in awe that somebody could write that many books and be that successful. It's really it's amazing
for the most part,
and be sane.
Well, thanks. Yeah, right. And thank you both for coming on, and thank you for allowing us to get lost, Karen, because in your books we can get lost, and that's a great place to go, especially nowadays when we've all been locked up. And I personally appreciate it, and I appreciate the time that you gave to us. Look up karen-white.com, email her, reach out on social media, check out where she's going to go next. And as far as Claire and Rich, I don't know, you're just going to have to check out these books and figure out where they appear next. So again, thank you both for joining us very, very much. And before
thanks, Claire, good to see you.
My pleasure. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I mean, it was just Claire. She's the one who introduced me to you in terms of having you on the show. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a great idea. It's wonderful. Now, before I let you both go, we are going to be having a small commercial on Sambuco. So if you don't mind just sort of staying till the very end. And everybody, thank you for joining us on Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find us anywhere, YouTube, Facebook, IGTV, and then we transferred over into all of our audio platforms as well, on iHeartRadio, or on Spotify. We're just about everywhere that you get your podcasts. Look us up, Deborah Kobylt Live. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's nothing more important than taking care of yourself, and if you're not feeling your best, you can't be your best for anyone else either. I've been using Sambuco to help support my immune system, and I've noticed a huge difference in how I feel. I'm more alert, I have more energy, and I believe that's because Sambuco is powered by nature's superfruit, black elderberry. It's good for me, and it's combined with vitamin C and zinc too. I feel that Sambuco really helps to keep my immune system strong, particularly during these times. And they have these super delicious all-natural gummies, powder to add to my water, chewable tablets, and a syrup that tastes amazing. Get 15% off of your order of $9.99 or more at sambucol.com. Use DEB15 for your special 15% off discount. That's sambucol.com and mark down DEB15. And join me in keeping a healthy immune system with black elderberry.